Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So if you've been following this show for a while, you know that I've been covering the story of those 3 fake candidates in Florida since last year. And if you're not familiar with the story, where the hell have you been? What rock have you been hiding under? Just kidding. So this story has a lot of twists and turns, and it relates to evil Jimmy Neutron, otherwise known as Matt Gaetz. But in a nutshell, 3 candidates ran as independents, and it has since come to light that they were basically what's known as ghost candidates who were just placed on the ballots to siphon votes away from the Democratic candidates, the real Democratic candidates. And this is not speculation. This is backed up by written evidence and now the testimony of one of the 3 fake candidates because he's now been arrested. So there's a bit of news to share about who may have paid for one of the other candidates, one of these 3. As you may recall, a woman named Justine Iannotti was one of these 3 ghost candidates who had never worked in politics before. She switched her party affiliation shortly before submitting her paperwork to run for that seat. She did not 1 minute of campaigning. She didn't do any events. She refused to speak with the press to promote her candidacy. In fact, she asked for privacy. She told the press she wanted privacy. I don't know who says that when they're running for a public office, but okay. And she, along with the other 2 fake candidates, was the recipient, in part, of $500,000 in mail advertisements, which we've now found out were paid for by a dark money group. She then up and moved after living in Florida her whole life. She just picked up and moved to Sweden once the authorities started looking into all of this, and especially after they started making arrests in another ghost candidate case. And like these other candidates, Iannotti was broke. She was in debt, severe debt, when she filed her paperwork, which requires a filing fee of almost $1,200. Well, now we may know who paid for that filing fee. And you won't be surprised to hear that this guy previously pled guilty to stealing campaign funds. He's currently on probation for that crime, and he and Matt Gaetz have several mutual friends. Wow, what a shock. So I've mentioned him before because we know that he contributed to Iannotti's campaign, but at that time, no one was aware or had any reason to believe that he may have paid for her candidate fee as well. Now that is what's being asserted. That's what's being alleged. I'm referring to Eric Fogelsong. According to the Orlando Sentinel, they had 3 handwriting experts compare court documents that were filed by Fogelsong, and they compared that writing to the writing on the check for Iannotti's filing fee, and they say that the handwriting is the same. Tom Vastrick is one of those experts. He's a forensic document examiner. He has over 40 years of experience working in a law enforcement crime lab and also in his private practice. Vastrick told the Sentinel that the evidence is clear and that the handwriting definitely matches. He said, quote, "I have a high level of confidence that these were all executed by the same person." The other 2 experts weren't as definitive, but they said that it was probable that the handwriting on these documents matched with the check. And here's the deal. Fogelsong was also strapped for cash. The Orlando Sentinel reports that he was evicted because he failed to make his rent payments. This is a father of 4 children. So why would a guy who's struggling financially, he has a family to take care of, and instead of paying rent, he's not only contributing to Iannotti's campaign, but then allegedly footing the bill for her campaign filing fee, especially when he claims that he didn't know her. When he was originally interviewed, he said that basically he just wanted to support an independent candidate rather than a Democrat or a Republican. And he also contributed to Alex Rodriguez's campaign. As I've previously shared with all of you, Rodriguez's fake candidacy resulted in his arrest, as well as the arrest of former Republican legislator Frank Artiles, who paid Rodriguez almost $50,000 to run against the Democratic incumbent. And Fogelsong was only one of 3 people who are shown to have contributed to Iannotti's campaign. According to the campaign finance reports, one of the other 2 people who contributed is a man named Adam Heath. And guess what? Heath is a friend of Fogelsong. What a shock. Again. And then the 3rd and final person who allegedly contributed to Iannotti's campaign was listed as Todd Karvosky. Now, I've mentioned before that Karvosky told reporters that he never heard of Iannotti. He had no idea who she was. He said he never contributed to her campaign. In fact, he's not even registered to vote. Now, after the Orlando Sentinel spoke with him and published the story, they said that someone claiming to be Karvosky sent an email to the newspaper essentially saying, oh, you know what? Yeah, I kind of brain faded. Now that you mention it, I do remember making that donation. I just thought that she sounded like a good alternative to the Democrats and the Republicans. Sounds an awful lot like the excuse that Fogelsong gave for donating to her. And when the Orlando Sentinel then tried to reach out to Karvosky by phone to confirm that he did in fact send that email, they got no response. Sounds totally legit, right? Not suspicious at all. So if he didn't make that donation, who made a straw donation in his name for this fake candidate? And then the other thing is Fogelsong's relationships, which I alluded to, with 1 degree of separation from Gaetz and Joel Greenberg, if that, and other shady and criminal characters. So, for example, Fogelsong is friends with Chris Dorworth. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because I did a whole story about how Dorworth is friends with Matt Gaetz, and the 2 of them allegedly were overheard discussing the idea of running a ghost candidate in Florida. Now, Dorworth denies, he doesn't deny having the conversation with Gaetz, he denies having any recollection of this conversation with Gaetz, which I find an odd way to deny an allegation. But his employer promptly dismissed him the day after the story broke. In addition, Fogelsong is connected to the doctor and marijuana businessman who went on that infamous trip to the Bahamas with Matt Gaetz and Joel Greenberg and several young female escorts. I'm referring to, of course, Dr. Jason Perizzolo. Apparently, back in 2017, Perizzolo hosted a fundraiser at his home, and he issued a message of thanks to Fogelsong on his Facebook page. Directly and personally thanked Fogelsong for his help. And Fogelsong has other direct and indirect connections to the now admitted child sex trafficker, Joel Greenberg, who also is a great buddy, or at least was, of Matt Gaetz. Apparently, they shared a lot of women and teenage girls, allegedly. So several years ago, a man named Chris Anderson was a House candidate in Florida. Fogelsong was one of his earliest supporters and campaign contributors. Several weeks after this guy, this Chris Anderson, filed to run for that House seat, however, Greenberg hired him to work in his tax collector's office. So they have that connection. And guess who else Greenberg hired? Fogelsong. Back in 2017, Greenberg hired and paid Fogelsong $10,000 for, quote, community relations consulting. I've talked about this before. As Greenberg explained it, Fogelsong was hired to help him determine if Greenberg could work with another county tax collector next door to his county to open additional offices along the border of the two counties. Seriously? How much work does that take? That's called a phone call. You pick up the phone, you say, hey, would you like to open additional offices along our border? Yes? Great. No? Why not? Can we discuss it? That's it. That's it. He got paid $10,000 in taxpayer money for a phone call. That's that party of fiscal conservatism again, folks. Anyway, this story just gets more and more complicated, more and more suspicious. So I, of course, will keep an eye on all of this. I am not going to let this go until the authorities get to the bottom of all of it. Let's hope there's a lot of jail time for people. Let's hope that Ayanati can be brought back from Sweden. They need to put the screws to these people and get them to all flip and admit to what was going on. So I'll keep you posted. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.